Tega.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank God it's Friday. Woo! All right.
TGIF.
So, what's happening this weekend? All right, the North London Derby is taking place this weekend. Arsenal versus Tottenham. Um, then there is the Madrid Derby also taking place this weekend. Real Madrid against Atletico Madrid. Those are the huge ones. Then there will be some Banter Derby taking place. Chelsea's playing this weekend. Manchester United is playing Burnley. That's Banter Derby. So there's all
Okay.
kinds of derby taking place this weekend. But before we talk about that, we'll touch a little bit on tennis. The Lever Cup starts today. So we'll touch on Guadalajara and then a little bit on the Lever Cup. And then we'll also talk about the Spanish women's national team. Yes, they're playing the UEFA Nations League today against Sweden. But there's some developments in the forceful nature in which they were prompted to come to camp. So we'll talk about that on the locker room. But before we do that, Omas, tell us, how can we be a part of the locker room today?
To be part of the conversation inside the locker room, we expect you to send WhatsApp messages to 0809-444-0981. If those messages come in, also, you can go over to X at Smooth981FM. They're formerly Twitter, but now they're known as X. But then you can also reach out to go see what's happening if you miss out any space of the show this morning on youtube.com/Smooth981FM Lagos on YouTube. So that said, Tega, let's look at the menu.
Let's look at the headlines.
Yeah. Garcia Kenin reached WTA Guadalajara semis as Japanese Grand Prix. Max Verstappen dominates first practice as David Reyes says Aaron Ramsdale must fight for the team if he wishes or wins back Arsenal goalkeeping, as Putellas Paredes says Spain players staying on to promote the change they're asking for, as Aubameyang rescues crisis-hit Marseille as Liverpool West Ham win. Then Brighton 2-3 AEK Athens. We must be smarter. De Zerbi aims for another upgrade, as Burnley boss Vincent Kompany says clubs like Man United are only ever one loss away from crisis, as Atletico can turn tide in Real Madrid derby clash. And that will be all of the stories.
All right, so let's start from the very top. What's happening in Guadalajara?
All right, then it says Francis Caroline Garcia overpowered Victoria Azarenka in straight sets to reach the semifinals of the WTA 1000 Guadalajara Open on Thursday. Third seed Garcia was always in control against a 10-seeded opponent from Belarus, winning 6-3, 6-4 in 1 hour, 37 minutes.
Yes, it looked that easy on paper, but early stages of the match, Caroline Garcia actually struggled in her service games. Azarenka had good looks into Caroline's service games, but what she was able to do was defend on the big points and then hit a few aces to win, to set her up to win her service games. But on Victoria Azarenka's point, it was the returns. The way Garcia was returning for Azarenka, she had 2 smooth games, and then the next game was complete shambles, and then she went back to smooth sailing. So yes, Victoria Azarenka would have felt hard done by because Caroline Garcia just played better on the big points. So the results make it look easy. The time the match finished makes it look easier.
Yes.
But the real match itself, if you saw it, was a completely different story. But that's Caroline Garcia on one hand. She struggled for most of the season after everybody anticipated that she was going to be one of the dark horses in a few of the big tournaments. So to come alive in Guadalajara and get all the way to the semifinals, she could win the finals. And then she'll be able to make it to the WTA final tour of the season where the top 8 play. That'll be interesting to see, but it's a good time for her to come alive. She's in semi-final. She could be facing Sofia Kenin. Sofia Kenin had a great match yesterday. Played against Leila Fernandez. That one went all the way to 3 sets. But here's what was tricky. First set was close. Second set was very tight. Third set was a complete whitewash by Sofia Kenin. So you wonder why Leila Fernandez fought in the first and second sets, only for her to lose the third set 6-1. Dramatic way for that. Also in the semifinals, Maria Sakkari, also another one who struggled for most of the season, especially in the Grand Slams. But she's gone deep into this tournament. She's also in the semifinal for this week. So let's see who really comes out to win Guadalajara. Remember, this was the tournament where most of the top 10 didn't even show up. So it obviously gave rise to some, shock winner. But it seems maybe Caroline Garcia, Maria Sakkari, or Sophia Kenin could be the winner. And then it would be a shock because, I mean, those people have had pretty interesting careers so far.
So before we drift away from tennis, I want you to speak to us more about Leila Fernandez. After that game where she broke into the consciousness and with Emma Raducanu, it just seemed like she's not been able to pick up form, and the tennis world expecting more from her. But how soon I would like you to see her?
What is the tennis world expecting more from her? There are many women on the WTA tour. What are they expecting her to do? The WTA tour is so random. It's not like men's tennis where the dominant players are the dominant players. The WTA, you can be beaten by literally anybody. That's how wild the WTA is.
All right.
It's so random. You could worry about Emma Raducanu because she's not even playing. So from one injury to the other, I think yesterday she announced that her season was done, even if her season never took off. I mean, she had the ankle surgery, then she had surgery on both her wrists. She's had shoulder injury. She's had all sorts of injuries since she won the US Open. So you could worry about Emma Raducanu because of that. But Leila Fernandez is pretty much still in and around the top 20. I mean, it fluctuates, but she's in and around the top 20, which is what you'd expect when you have all the names from Sabalenka to Iga Swiatek to Coco Gauff to Pegula. By the time you start to reach Leila Fernandez, you've at least passed 15 players. So I don't know that the tennis world expected her to do much like that. I mean, considering the names that were there before her and the names that are there with her right now.
That looks like a fine place to drift away from Spain and then get to Japan. Enough time to see what's happening in the Grand Prix over there. Japanese Grand Prix. Max Verstappen dominates the first practice in an awe-inspiring performance in setting the fastest time in first practice in the Japanese Grand Prix.
Oh, yes. So remember last weekend was a horror show for Red Bull. They didn't get pole on Saturday. They didn't get into any podium places on Sunday during the race. So this weekend, and so last weekend, remember what I told you? Max Verstappen had said over the radio, like, let's just let them have one. We'll obliterate them next weekend. Well, this is that next weekend, and they've thrown down the gauntlet from the practice session. It's almost as if they're feeling so slighted that we are not going to win all the races this season. And they came in with a bang. You know, it's not just about being fastest, it's about being the most complete car right now on the grid. Red Bull are angry that last weekend they didn't come away with anything. You know, for most constructors, when they have a damage control weekend, they try to get in and around the podium places if they are a very good constructor. But Red Bull was nowhere near it. And so they're angry that, look, we have the fastest car on the grid. We should be winning every single race, or at least we should be on the podium for every single race, but they weren't there. So this Japan Grand Prix gives them the opportunity. This circuit is suited to their car, and so they're going to want to dominate from today. And so Verstappen dominating in the practice session, especially Verstappen. Sergio Perez is, it's a great car, but it's not really built for Sergio Perez. It's more in tune to Verstappen. So yes, we expect him to at least come in top 3, but Max Verstappen is the one that is very angry. The one that is very upset, and he's the one that is going to respond this weekend. So wait to see how. So it's going to be Red Bull as usual versus the rest. So let's see how the rest of the pack, try to throw in spanner in the works. So I'd like to see a back-to-back weekend of no Red Bulls, but I'm not sure that can happen this season.
Well, let's move away from spanners being thrown in the works and in the wheels as the constructors do their job, and let's hope Red Bulls will bounce back. And you know what they say about Bulls anyway. Let's get into this next story, and this is football. David Raya says Aaron Ramsey must fight for the team if he wins back Arsenal goalkeeping job. That's what he's saying, to get the #1 shirt.
All right. So remember, Mikel Arteta woke up one morning and decided he was going to buy David Raya. A lot of people were like, why would you buy a first team player when you already have a first team player? Because Ramsdale hasn't done poorly. And so it came out of nowhere that he wanted to buy David Raya. Then to make the matters worse, last weekend he decided that he was going to start David Raya over Aaron Ramsdale. No mistakes by Aaron Ramsdale in the match before, no injuries to Aaron Ramsdale. He just decided David Raya suits me better. That's his preference, you know. I prefer jollof rice to fried rice. That's basically what he said. And he started David Raya. David Raya had a great weekend. And then he starts him again in UEFA Champions League. And again, he keeps a clean sheet and has an equally great midweek. So, of course, there is this question about why is Mikel Arteta doing this? You know, there are players that you're just dropping for no reason and relegating to the back for no reason. But the Vieira has now also added, fuel to this fire by saying if Aaron Ramsdale comes back, he should fight for the team, as if alluding to the fact that sometimes Aaron Ramsdale does not fight for the team. I'm just like, they've given you wings, you want to fly. It's really crazy, the competition that is going on there. But I would say this, competition for most teams is healthy, as long as they keep it to fighting the shit. Let's not hear that anybody buried any dead hyena or attempted to bury any dead hyena on the football pitch, but competition is healthy. However, that leads us to what's happening this weekend. Arsenal take on Tottenham Hotspur in the Premier League. Now, both teams have been doing great this season in the Premier League. Tottenham, shockingly so, especially after the sold Harry Kane, but they are adjusting to life perfectly well without him. And Arsenal, you know the story. They are the contender that most people think will be able to chase down Manchester City, especially this season. And so it's interesting to see two informed teams that are bitter rivals going head to head right now in the season. So I think for most people, this will be the match of the weekend to watch out for, which makes me open the phone line. Sorry, not the phone lines, the WhatsApp message medium, and I ask you, what do you think will be the outcome of the North London Derby? So predict the final scoreline of Arsenal versus Tottenham. The numbers to send your predictions to are
0809-444-0981. That will be where you get the WhatsApp messages to. What will be the outcome of the North London Derby this weekend? That's what Tega is asking this morning. So send that to 0809-444-0981. That said, Tega, when we come back, we have to go to Spain. And from Spain, we will be connecting to France to get some gist right there. But the red light beckons and we must allow traffic flow by. You're listening to The Locker Room on Smooth 98.1, and Tega Onojiafe is still in the locker room. My name is Omatseye Atsenuwa.
Omas, can you hear me? Omas, can you hear me? He has muted me. Oma!
Mistake. What's that? What happened? See, I just bought 1,000 naira glue data. The usual. I got 3.9 gigabytes. Guy, I swear, that's how I saw it too. I bought 2,000 naira data yesterday and got a whopping 9.2 gigabytes. Wow! Glue data is just always bigger. Yep, and always better. I swear down. Why are you moving your SIM?
I'm leaving this network and getting a Glow SIM immediately. I'm not giving you my new number. You're on probation. Why don't you tell me about these new Glow data plans?
No, new data plans. Always bigger, always better. Babe, sorry now. Yes, Glow SIM for today and enjoy bigger. Data on the Real Network. Just dial *777# and choose your plan. Few days ago, you look like that. Let's get limited in market.
Hi, Vegas. My name is Richie Franklin. And this is Smooth Breakfast.
It's still the locker room on Smooth 98.1 FM. Tega Onojiafe is still here. My name is Omatseye Atsenuwa, and we're getting ready to head straight to Spain and then connect France for some juicy details in relating to sport. But before that, we went on the break. Tega asked the question, what would be the outcome of the North London Derby this weekend? And we asked you to send those predictions to 0809-444-0981, as well as your reaction to any of the sports story inside the locker room this morning. Tega, it's over to you. Let's get into this one. We have Puteas also speaking right now about some issues. It says, Puteas Paredes say Spain players staying to promote the change. Spain players, Alexias Puteas and Irene Paredes, said Thursday the majority of the squad agreed to stay to advance the change within the Spanish Football Federation after they were called up to play for the women's national team against their will. Doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like they were ordered to pitch.
All right, so they were ordered,
Okay.
but they had an important meeting on Wednesday. That meeting lasted till about 5 p.m. But they had an important meeting. The players' union was there. The Spanish Sports Ministry was there, so government intervened, and then the Spanish Federation was there, and so the girls made their own claims. I think the important thing, I think the biggest thing that made this meeting well across board was the government just being present at the meeting. And so at the end of the meeting, they came to the conclusion that the Secretary General, one of the people that was backing Rubiales, was fired with immediate effect. And then the federation promised that they were going to make, and that, I think that was first of all the green flag to buttress their promise that they were going to make changes to make the sport safer for the women. That's what it was. The women just wanted better conditions. They felt like they weren't treated equally. And I mean, when you hear some of the stories that came out of it, they're just like, how dare you, But ultimately, the Football Federation has said there's going to be a new restructuring, and the immediate change that happened was the sacking of the Secretary General, Andre Combs. So he's out, and there'll be more changes to come. There'll be a new election to select the new head of women's football and all of that. So the players felt a little better about the changes that were coming. But still, some players decided. Then the other huge one was when the Football Federation was just like, what? Even if should you decide that you're not going to play, there's not going to be any legal actions. There's not going to be any fines. There's not going to be any national ban. Should you decide not to play for the team? So two players, Mapilion, she was one of the star players at the World Cup, and Guharu said, what, regardless of the changes that are going to happen, we are not playing today. We are going home for our mental health. So those two players left the camp. But the good news for them is that they don't get to pay any fines. They don't get to get any suspension. They don't get to get any legal action, because again, the federation promised that they are not going to take any actions against anybody that doesn't want to play, at least for now. So those two ladies decided to go home. The rest decided to stay and placing as a white flag has been shown. So I like the fact that at least they are dialoguing. That one was come to camp or else was a bit different, but now they are dialoguing. So and there's action that is taking place, to see that the girls are comfortable with the administrative part of the national team. So let's see how it plays out for all parties involved.
All is well that ends well. So with that said, we get to Marseille in France, where Aubameyang rescues crisis hit Marseille as Liverpool, West Ham also secured wins in their games. In the meeting of two former European champions, crisis, Ajax and Marseille drew 3-3 in a crazy game, while Liverpool and West Ham were also winners on Thursday in the opening round of Europa League group games.
All right, so we start with Liverpool. Again, in another interesting match, they fall behind very early. Not very early, but they fall behind shockingly to a team that you'd expect that, we've arrived in Austria, we should be able to defeat this team and move on. But they fall behind there. And of course, the usual suspects is that Mo Salah started from the bench. I expect that. I don't think that Jurgen Klopp will prioritize per se the Europa Cup over the Premier League. It's not Champions League. He was not going to start Mo Salah. So he started with not a dark horse, but Nunes started, Luis started. So those were important players for the team. But ideally, if it was a Champions League team, that starting lineup would be completely different. So they fall behind to a goal, and then they get the penalty. I still think that penalty was dodgy. But they get the penalty call, they score that penalty, and then from then they go on to win the game by 3-1. So Salah comes from the bench to score the third goal. So again, brilliant results, but again, they had to fall behind to come back, which has been their pattern for most of this season. So it will be interesting to see how they take on the Europa League. Next to West Ham, where Kudus, who used to play for Ajax, came into the game and scored for West Ham United, helping them to win their match, which is sad because ideally, on the other hand, you would have seen him in Ajax getting them the win. And Ajax couldn't get the win yesterday. Every time they scored, it seemed as if Marseille had the answer. In case you're wondering where Aubameyang went to after he left Chelsea and Barcelona, well, he went back home to France. Yes, back home. And some people say, well, he's from Africa. No, he went back home to France.
Gabon, precisely.
And so he scored 2 goals yesterday, and the third goal was always coming. Ajax kept looking for chances up front, and they could have scored 4 or 5 goals if Bergwijn had taken some of the chances that fell to him. Unfortunately, he didn't, and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang came in, made that cut. You know how it is. He runs wide, gets the ball, makes the cut into the center and takes a shot at the goal. And this time he beats the goalkeeper, gets into the back of the net, 3-3. So Marseille, despite the fact that they are going through a crisis, managed to travel away to Ajax and then not to be defeated. So 3-3, that game ended for Marseille and Ajax would be wishing that Kudus was still on their team. But unfortunately, West Ham are benefiting massively from the transfer markets.
So, Tega, we will let Brighton wait in the flanks for now as we quickly reach out to some of the messages and some predictions you asked for a while ago.
All right. So the North London Derby, what's everybody saying?
Okay, I see a couple of messages here from someone who said Arsenal versus Tottenham will be 2-0, and then it says in favor of Arsenal. Then I've got Emmanuel saying Arsenal 2, Tottenham 1. I've got this one away from the prediction. It goes, this is from Emeka from Amuwo. I don't understand this English media outrage against Ramsdale Raya goalkeeping situation at Arsenal. Where was the outrage when Gareth Southgate keeps starting Pickford over Ramsdale in the national team? Because Ateta did it, they all up in arms. As for Man United, with the way Onana is conceding goals, they have a better chance of keeping clean sheets with Sabinus in goal. That guy, no Biam. That's what he says. I've got Chimobi here. Chimobi from Alaba International. He says, I don't understand this Brighton team. And is running ahead. Let's get down to Brighton. Chimobi, we'll get back to you shortly because we're about to get into the Brighton story now. So let's get this story in. Brighton 2, AAK Athens 3. We must be smarter. The Zabi aims for another upgrade, and that's what he's saying.
All right. I will say this. They've been given a taste of what playing in Europe is, and it's completely different from the Premier League. Yesterday they got 2 penalty calls for them, and that's how they got their 2 goals. But every time they got back into the game, AK Athens just said, you know what, we've been here longer, let's show you how it's done. And a goal flies in.
Yes.
So I would say this for Brighton, they did create a lot of chances yesterday, but they weren't so clinical in front of goal. The 2 biggest culprits for me, if you ask, in the forward line for Brighton yesterday were Ansu Fati, the guy that just came in from Barcelona, and Mitoma. Shockingly, he had a few magical touches, but a lot of, I would say, unwise decisions when it came to the final third. So for me, those 2 players were the biggest culprits. But I like what the coach said. We have to be smarter, because that's what it was about. It was about riding your moment. When they had the opportunities, when they created the chances, they didn't put the ball in the back of the net. AK Athens, on the other part, when they had the chances, when they had the opportunities, they put the ball in the back of the net, and that's how they were able to come out with the win. So yes, I guess he's gotten his first lesson in playing European football, which is very different from playing in the Premier League, and maybe they'll come back better and smarter for it.
This leads us to Burnley boss Vincent Kompany says clubs like Man United are only ever just 1 loss from a crisis.
All right, it's true. It's like, Burnley, they haven't won a game this season, and by some companies, I won't say he's enjoying it. He's enjoying not having the limelight on him, but I'd say, nobody's really calling for his head. I think most people would have expected him to get the results he got against the teams he played against. But Manchester United, every result is heavily scrutinized, every play, everything. And so they played against Bayern Munich side, and I know a lot of people expected that Bayern Munich would completely obliterate Manchester United. That match ended 4-3. Because every turn, Manchester United found a way to come back in. So yes, they lost, but they weren't outclassed the way people thought they'd be outclassed. And again, that in part is to the fact that Bayern Munich are also going through their own crisis. So to concede 3 goals after scoring 4 goals, especially at home, is not something that the board members will be looking at with a smile. But Manchester United were not disgraced. That's the most important thing. However, Onana had a horrible game. 2 of those goals, I could say, on a normal day, were his fault. And so he came out at the end of the match to say that he was very sorry. He apologized. That it was his fault, that he could have done better, especially on the first goal, that he should have done better, and that he's going to try to do better. So this weekend gives him the opportunity to do better. Now, the good news is they're coming up against a team that hasn't gotten a win so far in the Premier League. So Burnley is a good team to bounce back against. But Manchester United, being Manchester United, the way they have been this season, you have to question whether they'll be able to do it. They did come back from 2 goals down against Nottingham Forest. And on paper, Nottingham Forest is a better team than Burnley, even if Nottingham Forest couldn't beat Burnley. So I expect that Manchester United should be able to get this result, at least to get them to feel good for a week and to take some pressure off of them.
So, Tega, we've got just less than a minute to do this. What would you gain this Friday if we don't throw in Atletico into the bus, or probably not under it now? Atletico can turn tide in Real Madrid derby clash.
Yes, it's a tough one, but they can't turn tide against Real Madrid. I just don't see it happening. In fact, I still think that Real Madrid will come out tops in this one, especially because of recent results that Atletico Madrid have. Remember, midweek they were leading against Lazio. And then the goalkeeper for Lazio scores a literally last minute goal. Match was over. So
I see what you did there. For Lazio, last minute goal. I see what you did there, Tega.
And then we remember that over the weekend they lost against Valencia by 3-0. So they're not in a very good place. Real Madrid, on the other hand, winning in extra time in the Champions League, and then having a good weekend, coming from behind to win their game over the weekend. So interesting one for them. I still think that Real Madrid is going to take this one, but I think it'll be a closely fought Madrid derby.
All right, well, let's wrap up with our messages now. I've got messages on YouTube, Tega, and let's go to it. I see B was calling my attention to something a while ago while you were trying to reach us, but thank you so much, B. And now we've got an LK at Deruba saying, I predict a draw for London Derby. As for Chelsea, I predict a loss as usual. I'm tired of fasting and praying for that team. And Ernest Okenwa says his prediction will be Arsenal 2, Tottenham 0, and the whole drama between Ramsdale and David Raya should stop because both keepers are good and Raya should be given chance to prove himself. Those are the messages from YouTube. And then I get to Chimobi from Alaba International. Good morning, guys. I understand this Brighton team, they successfully lost in a match which may have given it to them to win. They really lack experience. And while on Arsenal, we will get the maximum point this weekend. Even Tega will surely agree with me on this one.
I do not agree. I wasn't there.
Tayo comes in from Aja. Onana is the new Maguire. I'm calling him like Onana Guaya patent pending. He will learn the stock of his title, shouting at Maguire as its consequences. Apology interview go plenty. I hope his teammates will be on ground to pick him up this weekend. If anything should happen between Raya and Ramsdale, hold Arteta by the trousers, Bellingham to score. I have AY from Maniru. Casemiro was the only lifeline of Man United on Wednesday. That made the scoreline look somewhat reasonable. But again, against Burnley, I know Man United will crumble again. I will be here. AY from Maniru. That's a wrap on the show, Tega.
Oh, wow. You people have no faith in Manchester United. And on that note, I say goodbye to you. Have a great weekend. Make sure you watch everything from the Grand Prix in F1 to the matches and to all the derbies, both in Madrid and in North London. So we'll see you on Monday with more banter. Have a great weekend.
And that's a wrap.